Hey kids, remember Lieutenant Commander Data from Star Trek The Next Generation? Ever wondered what his great-great-great-great-grandfather was like? No? Well, they made 3 episodes about him anyway. This is a review of the Star Trek Enterprise episode Borderland. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know what all the hip young augments are wearing in 2154, be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. This episode has it all. Klingons, genetically engineered superhumans, slavery, and Brent Spiner smirking his way through the whole thing. Let's see what happens. We open on the bridge of a bird of prey. I told you there were Klingons. As the crew rescues a small ship, its life support failing, its 2-person crew desperate for help. Only, haha, gotcha Klingons! That ship was only playing possum. The 2 dudes aboard it didn't need help. They needed a way on to this bird of prey so they could kick some Klingon ass. And Klingon ass they do indeed kick in quite emphatic fashion. These youngsters have clearly been making the most of their memberships at their local MMA gym. Not only are they skilled fighters, they also have superior strength. They kill a hallway full of Klingons in a few seconds and go on to capture the rest of the ship with ease. Cut to a Starfleet prison facility where this guy, Arik Soong, we'll soon learn his name to be, is sitting in his cell, writing, minding his own business, when who should arrive to visit him but Captain Jonathan Archer of the Enterprise. It turns out the murderous gym rats who we just saw hijack that Klingon ship were Augments, genetically engineered superhumans grown from embryos left over from the time of the eugenics wars. How did these particular augments get to be anything other than frozen embryos? Why, 20 years ago they were stolen by none other than Dr. Arik Soong here. That's why Archer has come, to borrow Soong from prison to help Enterprise track down the augments before the Klingon Empire declares war on Earth. Soong is brought aboard Enterprise, which is still in space dock in Earth orbit following the events of the past few episodes. This is the beginning of Season 4, right after the end of the Xindi arc and the ensuing time-traveling alien space Nazi shenanigans. Soong is kept in quarters under guard. The crew is finishing up a refit of the ship, which includes a fancy new captain's chair for Archer. Enterprise sets sail for a region of space known as the Borderland. So called because it's located along the border between Klingon space and territory controlled by the Orion Syndicate. Later, Soong is in sickbay with Dr. Phlox, studying some DNA recovered from one of the Klingons killed and jettisoned into space by the augments who stole that bird of prey. This particular DNA is from Malik, who Soong describes as the rebellious one. Phlox is like, you must be pretty proud of yourself for recreating a clan of supervillains whose legacy of blood stretches back through centuries of Earth history. And Soong's like, yeah, I am. Before Enterprise's search for the augments can go on for very long, the ship is attacked by Orion pirates. 2 Orion ships appear, guns blazing. During the firefight, 9 members of Enterprise's crew, including T'Pol, are beamed away. Then, the Orion ships jump to warp. So now Archer has to interrupt his quest to find the augments and start a whole new quest to rescue his abducted crew members. What is this, Season 2 of The Mandalorian? Anyway, luckily, Soong can help with this mission too. During his years as an outlaw geneticist, he established relations with the Orion Syndicate, and he knows how they operate and where their outposts are. He tells Archer, I can get you in, but I can't get your people out. Archer's like, good enough, let's go. Meanwhile, on that stolen Klingon ship, there's an augment soap opera playing out between Malik, one of the 2 who captured the ship, Rakeen, Malik's brother and the leader of this group of augments, and Persis, the woman who's caught in the middle. Rakeen didn't approve of Malik hijacking the Klingon ship. But now that it's done, Rakeen wants to use the ship to transport their clan to a new planet. One more hospitable than the world they just left, where they'd been since Soong was captured 10 years ago. Rakeen's plan is for the augments to simply resettle somewhere and live in peace, minding their own business. But that doesn't work for Malik. So, with help from Persis, who is technically dating Rakeen, but is also into Malik and thinks he would be a better leader, Malik sets a trap for Rakeen and kills him. taking over as leader of the Augments. Good for him, he's earned it. We check up on T'Pol, who has been taken to an Orion Syndicate outpost to await being auctioned off as a slave. She's thrown into a pen with another abducted Enterprise officer, this guy who is not having the best time. T'Pol's like, "Ensign, I don't know you. What's your name?" And he's like, "Mike Nelson. I just signed on before we left Earth. God, these Orions are worse than Clayton and Pearl Forrester combined. I never should have left the satellite of love. What was I thinking?" T'Pol says, "It's okay. I'm going to teach you an old Vulcan method for controlling your stress and anxiety. Would you like that?" "Yes." "Okay. Just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax." Enterprise arrives at the Orion outpost. Soong is injected with a transponder that will allow Trip to instantly find him and beam him back up if he gets any funny ideas about trying to escape while he's down there. Archer and Soong beam down to the outpost and begin searching for the missing crew members. Meanwhile, T'Pol is being auctioned off at the slave market. Hey, get a load of that Orion auctioneer. He sure is a giant. And what a production this slave auction is. I was expecting something rinky-dink, but it really is the big show, huh? Anyway, T'Pol gets sold for a record amount and sorted into a new cage where they keep the sold slaves. Archer and Soong find her, but Archer can't say much more than hello before Brainiac, who is working as an Orion guard for some reason, shows up and runs them off. The jolly green human trafficking giant hauls Mike Nelson up on the auction block like, "Okay, next item. This guy was a temp, then he was the subject of a long-term psychological experiment involving watching bad movies with smart-ass robots. His file says he's funny, but I can't vouch for that because he hasn't stopped crying since he got here. Let the bidding begin!" Captain Archer buys Ensign Mike and bribes one of the guards to let him go with the restraining device still attached to his neck. That way, Phlox can remove it and they can figure out a way of deactivating all of the restraining devices at once, which will make rescuing the rest of the abducted crew, like, so much easier. While Phlox is working, Trip comes in like, "Hey, what's up with these Orions anyway? Selling people as slaves? What a bunch of assholes." Soong says, "Yeah, kinda like your ancestors, huh, Florida man?" Trip says, "Hey, I wouldn't be so cocky if I was you. I bet those Augments you're so fond of had plenty of slaves when they ran the world back in the day." Soong says, "Yeah, but that's made-up Star Trek history. My thing was from actual history, so I win." Archer and Soong go back down to the Orion outpost, and once Trip cracks the code on that restraining device, Archer is able to send a signal that turns off all the slave restraints, and he has set the captives free! T'Pol breaks loose from the giant Big Show and gives him a well-earned kick to the green onions before she is beamed away. But all is not going according to plan. Soong takes advantage of the chaos to knock Archer down and make a run for it. Archer calls Trip and tells him to use the transponder to beam Soong back, but Soong has already fried the transponder by jabbing himself in the neck with an Orion zap stick. Soong evades Archer for a few minutes, but pretty soon Archer corners him and takes him back to Enterprise. Once Soong is locked up in the brig, Archer's like, "So, you were hoping once we got to this region of space that Orions would attack us and abduct members of my crew, right? So you could use this situation to try and escape? I mean, yeah, sure, if that's what we're going with." "Well, it didn't work, and now you're going to help me find those Augments." Or, counterproposal, just go home and leave the Augments alone? The Orions aren't happy about Archer stealing back the slaves they stole, and 2 Orion ships catch up and attack Enterprise. Fortunately, the Augments arrive with their bird of prey and take out the Orions. Archer allows the bird of prey to dock with Enterprise, and Malik comes aboard to discuss the situation with Archer. Malik is like, "Let me talk to Soong," or Father, as I call him. It's a little pet name we all have for him. Archer's like, "No." So Malik says, "Okay then," and grabs Archer and uses him as a human shield. Meanwhile, Persis and the other Augments override the code on Enterprise's airlock and storm the ship. They break Soong out of the brig, and Soong is like, "My children, I knew I'd see you again. I'm so proud of you. Now let's go. Hey, Captain Archer, if I were you, I'd buy a copy of the Klingon dictionary. Know what I'm saying? Later." Aboard the bird of prey, Soong addresses the Augments, telling them that their purpose is to build a new world, but in order to do that, they first have to liberate the thousands of their brothers and sisters who are still in storage, waiting to be born. Let's go steal some embryos. To be continued. Dun, dun, dun! Typically, when there's a to be continued at the end of an episode, I cover both parts in a single review, but this time, because this is actually a 3-parter instead of a 2-parter, I'm doing 1 part per review. Though, having just watched this episode, I'm starting to wonder if that was a mistake. Because the thing about Borderland is, nothing really happens. I can hear some of you already leaping to the show's defense. How can I say nothing happens? We meet Arik Soong. We see Augments hijack a Klingon ship. We see T'Pol and other Enterprise crew members get abducted and almost sold into slavery. We see Soong attempt to escape, get recaptured by Archer, and subsequently liberated by his Augments. So let me back up. When I say nothing happens, I mean that nothing, or rather, very little, happens to move the story of this 3-episode arc forward. We start this episode with the Augments stealing a Klingon ship and Soong in prison, and we end the episode with Soong free and with the Augments on the Klingon ship, setting off to do something else. Stuff happens in between the start and the to be continued, but most of it feels like filler. The abridged The Young and the Restless storyline carried out between Malik and Rakeen on the Bird of Prey feels particularly excessive. A few important points are established: the relationship between Malik and Persis, the ruthlessness of Malik, who is willing to kill his own brother to take power, but I don't think we needed to thread these meager beats throughout an entire episode. It's been a little while since I watched these Enterprise Augments episodes, so this morning when I was watching this one, whenever we cut back to the Augments on the Bird of Prey, I got a flashback to season 1 of Star Trek Picard and all that stuff on the salvaged Borg cube with Narek and Narissa, the Romulan incest twins, and the same thing happened. My interest in the episode immediately dropped to 0. Maybe Malik and the other Augments get more interesting in parts 2 and 3, but the status at the end of part 1 is, I don't give a shit about any of them. Over on the Enterprise-centered portion of the show, the problem isn't just that what happens is mostly filler to delay the proceedings long enough to make this a 3-parter, it's that the filler feels like it should have just been its own standalone episode. T'Pol and other members of the crew are abducted and almost sold into slavery. Archer has to go undercover and infiltrate an Orion syndicate outpost to find them and get them out. Doesn't that sound like it should be the actual plot of an episode, instead of an extended bit of narrative busywork? Since it ends up just being a prologue for whatever's coming next, Borderland feels like it's not really about anything. Sure, stuff happens, there is incident, but very little of it actually means something relative to the larger story being told. The scenes that take place at the Orion slave market are probably the most interesting in terms of just having something to watch. The predicament in which the characters find themselves is inherently compelling. The Orions and the various other slave dealers present come across as entertaining enough sleazy villains, and hey, Big Show's having a fucking ball, ain't he? But the episode isn't actually about any of that, nor does the episode have anything particularly interesting to say about slavery or the Orions or the rest of it, because it's just stuff that's happening to kill time. Brent Spiner as Arik Soong is fine. He does as well as he can with what he's given, which isn't much. Spiner is a great performer with superb comic timing, but he doesn't get much of a chance to show that off here. I'll never understand why producers cast actors with obvious, well-known strengths in parts that don't take advantage of those strengths. If Soong had a little bit more personality, it's easy to imagine Spiner absolutely killing it here. Instead, he's mostly here to be snide and condescending. He has a couple of exchanges with Phlox and with Archer that nod indifferently in the direction of a commentary on the wisdom and ethics of trying to improve the species, but that never really goes anywhere. At least not here. Maybe next time, huh? It's not all bad. Like I said already, the Orion slave market bits work all right for whatever they're worth. Big Show is a lot of fun. The fight scene between the two Augments and the Klingons at the beginning is very well done, fast-paced, well choreographed and shot, giving us a clear impression of how powerful and lethal these Augments are. If only the episode established its other important points as efficiently as that. And there are some nice character beats. Archer taking a moment to acknowledge his bridge officers before they once again set out from Earth. A few awkward moments between T'Pol and Trip, who are in the process of working through some personal stuff. I just wish the good parts had more to do with the rest of the episode. Or the rest of the episode had more to do with the good parts. I'd have taken either one. Enterprise is a lot more serialized in its final 2 seasons than its first 2, and Season 4 in particular favors multi-episode story arcs. Which is fine, that's as good a way of telling a story as any other, but even in a multi-episode arc, each episode needs to feel necessary, and be compelling, and be of value in its own right. Taking 3 episodes to tell a story? Great, as long as you need all 3 episodes to tell it. Stretching a story that only needs 1 or 2 episodes out across 3 just wastes the audience's time. If an episode ends with "to be continued," and you're looking forward to the next part, not because you're eager to see what happens next, but because you're waiting for something to start happening, that's not a good episode. And if an episode ends up feeling like a prologue that the audience could skip and miss nothing important, which this one does, the creators of that episode would have been better off skipping it too. Those are my thoughts on Borderland. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next time as this batch of Augments episodes continues. The next episode I'm reviewing is also, naturally, the next episode of Enterprise after this one, titled Cold Station 12. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.